So I'm just going to turn it over to Art Mabry. He's Special Assistant Attorney General in South Dakota, and he's here to talk about the 24/7 sobriety program, and I think this is a great opportunity to illustrate how technology and culture change can come together to combat some of our more intractable issues in highway safety. So I'm going to step aside and leave it to Art Mabry. Have a good time.
Thank you. It works. Good start to the technology. Nice turnout. This looks like about half the population of South Dakota. Well, good morning to you. As was mentioned, my name is Art Mabry. I am with the South Dakota Attorney General's Office. I am the state coordinator for the 24/7 sobriety program. You'll excuse me, I do not like being behind a podium, so I'll be moving around. A little bit about my background, basically law enforcement. Started my law enforcement career in the Fairfax County Police Department in Fairfax County, Virginia, as a patrol officer. Retired 25 years later as a major in charge of the Patrol Bureau. Those of you not familiar with Fairfax County, it's a suburb of Washington, D.C. When I left, it was well over 1 million people. Police department was about 800, just assigned to the patrol portion of it. So I've worked in just about every aspect of law enforcement with Fairfax County. I left there, I went to Olathe, Kansas, a suburb of Kansas City, where I was a police chief. After being there for a while, I left, which was a community of about 100,000, so I went from 1 million to 100,000. And then I left there and went to Vermont, South Dakota, home of the University of South Dakota, where the population is about 10,000. So 1 million to 100,000 to 10,000. So I've got a little bit of experience in all aspects of law enforcement. When it came time to, when I realized that, I'm getting a little tired of rolling around with these college football players on a Friday night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and decided it was time to retire, the Attorney General decided that it was time for the 24/7 program, which started in 2005, to have a full-time coordinator. When we started the program, you know how it is when we start new programs, there's never any money for it, there's never any staffing for it. So the way they started the 24/7 program in 2005 was everybody who already had a full-time job had different aspects of the program. The program grew very rapidly to the point that it probably wasn't being managed as well as it should have been because people just didn't have the time to give to it. Attorney General decided it was time to give it a full-time coordinator. I got the phone call, and as they say, the rest is history. I told him I would give him 5 years. It's now been 7. I've retired twice, still hasn't worked. Hopefully I'll get it the 3rd time. So a little history. Who's ever heard of the 24/7 sobriety program? Okay, a few of you have. Let me give you a little history on it. Basically, it started in one of our most rural counties. Actually, it was a Native American reservation county. The state's attorney, which is our in South Dakota, that's what we call our prosecutor, recognized that he's seeing the same people day in and day out coming through the door, coming through court. And he also recognized that he was a member of this community. He knew these people. And he recognized that when these people were sober, there was never any issues. But when they consumed alcohol, they had issues. Whether it was driving intoxicated, whether it was domestic violence, whether it was other types of assault, any kind of crime. So he decided that he would talk with the judge and with the sheriff, and he had this idea. The idea was if he could keep the people sober, then he could keep them out of jail. So he went to the judge, he went to the sheriff, and he said, here's my idea. Instead of incarcerating, I would like you to require the judge to require them to come in twice a day and take a PBT test, a breath test. As long as they blow clean, they stay out of jail. They stay with their families, they keep their jobs, they continue to contribute to the community, and the jail is not having to pay to incarcerate them. The judge and the sheriff looked at him and said, "You're nuts, it won't work." He said, "Humor me." They did, and it worked. It worked for that small community. Well, that state's attorney went on to become the Attorney General for South Dakota. He was appointed to South Dakota at the time was having an issue with prison overcrowding. He was appointed to a governor's committee to try to reduce the prison overcrowding. I suspect South Dakota is no different than Vermont or any other state, but a lot of the people a lot of the inmates in our prisons are there because they did something under the influence of alcohol. So Larry Long, who is now the Attorney General, made the suggestion that, hey, this worked in the county that I came from, let's try it statewide. Again, most of the people in that committee kind of said this will never work. It might have worked in your little rural area, but it's not going to work in the larger areas like Sioux Falls and Rapid City, South Dakota. Again, humor me, and they did. So one of his first steps was obviously to talk with all the judges, get them on board, talk with prosecutors, get them on board. And then he came to the sheriff's and police chiefs conference to get us on board. I was a police chief at the time, sat in a room very much like this, and he made the proposal. And the proposal was this: sheriffs, I would like for you to run this program. I would like to start a pilot program. I'd like for you to, judges, instead of sentencing people to jail, we'll sentence them to the 24/7 program. They will come in, they will take a breath test. If they pass, they will go on and complete their day. They'll come in every 12 hours and do this. If they fail, they will immediately go to jail. If they do not show, they go to jail. But they only go to jail for a short period of time. Currently, one of our larger areas, the Sioux Falls area, has set up a program where the first time you fail, you go to jail for 12 hours. The second time you don't see a judge, you just go straight to jail. The second time, if you fail a second time, you go to jail for 24 hours. Third time, 48 hours. The fourth time, you go back to court and see the judge. So one of the important things of the 24/7 program are immediate consequences. I sat in a room very much like this, listened to him tell this story, and I'm looking around at the sheriffs and the other police chiefs, and we're all kind of rolling our eyes and shaking our heads going, this will never work. But Larry Long was a very strong supporter of law enforcement, and we felt that we owed it to him to give it a try. So a couple of the sheriffs said, okay, we'll do it. We'll run some pilot programs. As they say now, the rest is history. Probably wasn't 6 months of those pilot programs before other sheriffs were asking to get on, because those who were running the pilot program were singing the praises about this program. I visit many of our, well, I'll touch a little bit on this. First of all, like most states, when someone's convicted or arrested for impaired driving, the rule is you don't drink, you don't go to bars, and you don't drive. How enforceable is that? Law enforcement people in the room, how enforceable is that? Not very enforceable. As a law enforcement officer, I would go into a bar and I'd see people drinking, but I didn't know they were on any kind of a court order not to do so. It just wasn't reasonable to enforce it. The program's been around since 2005, like I mentioned. It's been recognized significantly around the country. The RAND Corporation got a grant to study it, and one of the results of their study was that South Dakota, after the start of the 24/7 program, South Dakota reduced their impaired driving arrests by 12%. Recidivism rate, reduce the recidivism rate by 12%. Anytime you can reduce any recidivism rate, that's a victory. If you can do it by 12%, that's pretty good. One of the other aspects that we didn't think about was during their study, they reported that we had reduced domestic violence arrests by 9%. South Dakota is like many other states. We have a mandatory arrest for domestic violence. So it's not like the officers all of a sudden stop making arrests. As a police officer, I've been on many domestic situations in my life, and I also know that some of these people that I knew when they were sober, it wasn't an issue, but when they were drinking, it became a problem. So that was another success of the program that we didn't really recognize at the time. Our goal is sobriety. And I might point out, it's called the 24/7 sobriety test, sobriety program. It's not called the 24/7 abstinence program. Now, judges tell people, do not drink, do not drink, do not drink. If we can keep them sober, we can teach them, if we can change their behavior regarding drinking, then that's a success. When we started out, our target group was anyone arrested for driving under the influence with a prior conviction in the last 10 years. That was really our focus. Much as I heard the statistics about Vermont and your fatal crashes, South Dakota is no different. In fact, back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, we were either number 1 or number 2 in fatal accidents. And we were either number 1 or number 2 in fatal accidents where alcohol was a contributing factor. So we had to do something. I'm glad to say we are no longer ranked number 1 or number 2 in either one of those areas. So when someone was arrested or is arrested for driving under the influence, their bond conditions are no alcohol, no bars, just like before, but a breath test, and I say 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. We allow each testing agency, each site, each county to set their own times. That's kind of the state default time. Someplace like Sioux Falls that are testing 400 to 500 people at every testing time. They have to have obviously a little larger window for people to come in and test. Smaller agencies they only are testing 10 to 20, don't have to have near as big of a window. I have some agencies who just talk to the participant. We refer to them as participants or clients. Talk to the participant, and if they work an evening shift, the person might test at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then come in and test at 3 o'clock in the morning. The goal is try to make it about 12 hours apart, as close as possible. If you skip or fail, you go to jail. Very simple. Now, when we wrote the legislature, we didn't just write it just for driving under the influence. Yes, that was our focus, but whether it was accidental or farsighted, I'm not sure which, we wrote it to cover all crimes. Any crime where the judge feels that alcohol was a contributing factor, the judge could place them into the 24/7 program. And I said could. It's not mandatory. It's only mandatory on bond if your blood alcohol is 0.17 or higher. It's the only time it's absolutely mandatory. If there's a I won't say if there's a weakness, one of the weaknesses to the program, and the program's not perfect, is that judges can be all over the place when it comes to the use of the 24/7 program. When I went to Larry Long, who was the Attorney General, this was his brainchild, is now the Chief Circuit Court Judge in Sioux Falls. I talked with him shortly after I took over the program to say, when you pass the legislation, why didn't you make some of this more mandatory? And his response was, judges don't want to be told what to do. If I wanted the support of the judges, I had to give them a lot of leniency. I would say probably 75% of our judges use the 24/7 program to one degree or another. So we use it for pretrial. We also use it for convictions, sentencing. Instead of being sentenced once you're convicted, instead of being sentenced to jail, we put on the 24/7 program. Parole uses the 24/7 program a lot. When they get a parolee that's released, one of the issues that they have to deal with, obviously, is the alcohol issue, and they place them on the 24/7 program. We use it for abuse and neglected children. For some folks to maintain custody of their children, they have to participate in the 24/7 program. Again, no alcohol is a great parent. You get alcohol, you're not such a good parent sometimes. This is a map of South Dakota for those of you who don't recognize it. It's not North Dakota. They look pretty similar. The counties in the green are all the counties that participate in our 24/7 program. The counties in the red do not participate, mostly because they are Native American reservation counties. And obviously we have issues when it comes to going onto a reservation and making an arrest, making an immediate arrest. So, pretty good percentage though. The bottom one, the Todd County, sheriff just called me the other day and now he wants to try to start a program. So, it's voluntary on the part of our sheriffs. Nobody has to participate in this program, but as you can see, just about everybody does. So here's how it works. The foundation of the program, and I say foundation because that's how we started. We started out with twice a day PBT. You come in twice a day, as I said, you take a PBT test, you pass, you go home, you go home, you go to work, you support your family, all those things. So this was the foundation of our program. It will always be the foundation of our program. However, times change, technology changes. Not everybody can come in twice a day. So we now utilize, between alcohol and our drug testing, we now utilize 5 different testing methods. We're about to add number 6, and I'll go into that in a minute. And I should point out that we started to notice that when people stopped drinking, some of them started using drugs. So the 24/7 program also addresses the issue of drugs. And right now, we now see more people on our program for drug usage than we do for alcohol issues. That's a swing that has taken place probably over the last 3 years, I'd say. So a typical PBT test, the person's in, they're out very rapidly. Here's our stats through October 1st. Since the start of the program, 46,000, almost 47,000 participants. Understand South Dakota's total population is about 800,000. On any given day, there's 2,000 active participants in the program. For PBT stats, we've given almost 10 million tests. I don't have to read all these, you can see what it says. The passing rate's about 99%. Now, 99% sounds pretty high, but that's a lot of tests. 50% never fail a test. Now, when I first saw this statistic, I go, well, I went to school, 50% was not passing. I didn't go to school in South Dakota, but when you stop and think about it, a lot of these people are hardcore drinkers. They've been drinking all their life. I don't know what the situation is in Vermont, but I can tell you in South Dakota, some of the drinking starts at a very young age. Actually, some of it is sometimes encouraged by parents. It's just a generational thing that gets passed on and passed on. So 50% that never fail a test of some of these folks that are very die-hard drinkers, that's a pretty good percentage. And then you can see the rest of them. Sometimes people have to fail a number of tests, get thrown and put in jail a number of times before it sinks into them how this program works and what they can do to stay out of jail. So, not everybody can come in twice a day and take a PBT test. Either their work schedule doesn't allow it, or I don't know if you noticed that some of our counties are rather large, and we don't expect somebody to drive 50 miles one way to take a PBT test and drive home and drive back again that night. That's not realistic. So we went to the SCRAM bracelet, which is an alcohol bracelet, goes on your ankle. It detects alcohol through the sweat. You have a SCRAM representative out in the hallway. I'm sure they can go through all the scientific detail with you. But the difference between a SCRAM bracelet and twice-a-day PBT testing, the important thing for us is it continually monitors. Now, I'm the first one to tell you that we know when somebody comes in and takes a PBT test at 7 o'clock at night, we know they can go out and have a few beers afterwards, and it will probably be out of their system by 7 o'clock the next morning. The difference is they're going out and having a few beers. They're not going out and consuming an 8-pack or 12-pack. They're waking up the next morning sober. They haven't got it to the point of intoxication. We're trying to change their behavior. So we know that it doesn't always work. So sometimes, and what they'll do is they'll push it. Say, well, I had 2 beers last night. I didn't pass this morning. Now I have 3. Sooner or later, they get nailed. And they stand, some of these places, they stand in line and take the testing, and they talk to each other, and give them trade secrets and all that kind of stuff. You know, we've had people meet in that line and get married. I mean, it's a social thing for some of them. Anyhow, again, the focus is sobriety. Abstinence, yeah, we'd like to see that, but that's not our focus. Sobriety is our focus. So the SCRAM bracelet, though, kind of prevents that consumption of alcohol after your test because it takes a reading every 30 minutes. So it's constantly monitoring your alcohol content. So we went to the SCRAM bracelet. At any given time now, we have about 600 people on the SCRAM bracelet. The way it works is a couple ways that it'll work. You can download from your home. You're given a base station. You can download through the internet. You can download through a telephone line. But one of the things we lose with the remote devices, and I refer to this as a remote device, is that contact, that daily contact that we have with folks. I'll go through some statistics here a little bit later, but the studies are showing that twice-a-day PBT testing is the most effective in our program to reduce recidivism. SCRAM is effective, and it does reduce our recidivism rate, but not as much as that twice-a-day PBT testing. And part of that is that daily contact they have with law enforcement. They come in the morning, they see the same person. They come in at night, might be a different person, but every night it's the same person. I go around to our testing sites. I watch them, I monitor them, I provide support for them, and I watch these participants come in and talk with the testers, and they talk about their grandkids, they talk about their jobs, they talk about sports, weather. They create a relationship there. And when they come in, I went to one testing site, and a fella came in and he's dressed very nice, and I find out that he's going for a job interview after his test. And I find out that the testers have been coaching him about how to get ready for this job interview. One thing he forgot was he had a nose ring in. And one of the testers said to him, you might want to take the nose ring out before you go to your interview. He goes, oh my gosh, I forgot. Thank you. That's the kind of relationship that develops. So when the participants come in and they fail a test, they've let that person down. And I see it. I see them. They know they have disappointed the person that they've created this relationship with. There's no way to statistically capture that information. But I'm telling you, it's there. It's clearly there. We lose that with a little bit of that with remote testing. One of the ways we get around that is instead of doing the remote download, we require them to come into the testing site twice a week and do what we call a direct connect, where they have a cable, they connect it to their computer, and they pull the information out of the bracelet. That way, twice a week, they at least get contact with this person, can kind of check the bracelet, make sure they're taking care of it, all those kind of things. There's our statistics for the SCRAM bracelet through October. The SCRAM bracelet was challenged. It did go to our South Dakota Supreme Court, and not only was the SCRAM bracelet upheld, but the 24/7 program was upheld in our Supreme Court. What was the challenge? The challenge was the technology. And we were fortunate that one of the things all our vendors will do is they will come, they will testify, and they will support their technology. We also use ignition interlock, and I know ignition interlock is used significantly on the East Coast. So ignition interlock is another one of our testing devices, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with ignition interlock. You have to blow into the device before you can start your car. You have to blow into it periodically while you're driving. We tried ignition interlock probably in about 2005, 2006, and it didn't work for us because it froze up. It's kind of cold in South Dakota. It would freeze up and then it didn't work. So we kind of put it on hold for a while till the technology got a little better. In 2012, we came back and revisited it. And in the current Attorney General's wisdom, he thought it'd be best if it was tested with one in my state car, which was a royal pain in the neck, let me tell you, and an embarrassing thing to do too, especially driving around my hometown where everybody knew I was a retired police chief, and they see me at a stoplight blowing this thing. But anyhow, as it turned out, the technology had improved enough that we didn't have the issue with the freezing up, and so we also used ignition interlock as a testing device. The thing that we do unique to our ignition interlock, though, is we require the participant to take a test on their device twice a day, whether they drive their car or not, or whether they drove this morning and aren't driving this afternoon. They still have to take a test. 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night. If you fail to take that test, you go to jail. So it's very similar to going into a sheriff's office and taking a PBT test. Only difference is you just go out to your car and take it. But by requiring twice a day, that prevents them from parking their car and drinking all day, or driving another car. So, you don't see a lot of participants up there. Number one, we haven't been doing it as long as we've been doing the entire program. Number two, it's a little costly. The upfront cost is a little high. And we have people who don't own cars. Or they just don't want to do it because there's only one family car and everybody has to blow if they're going to drive that car. Drug analysis. Again, as I mentioned, we noticed that when people stopped drinking, they moved to drugs. So we have basically two ways of testing for drugs. We do what we call a UA, and then we also do, and there's our UA stats. You notice the passing rate here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the drug patch or the sweat patch. The passing rate here is, in my opinion, high. I don't think that many are passing. Those of you familiar with a UA, you know there are ways to beat it, or at least try to beat it. We have the issues with, especially in some of our more rural areas, where a female client comes in and only people on staff are males. So do they just send them into the bathroom by themselves to provide the sample? If they do, that's probably not a good way to do it. And so, quite frankly, I question that high number for our UAs, but I mean, the facts of the numbers are the numbers. We also use the drug patch, or often referred to as the sweat patch. We use the PharmChem patch, and Carrie Wagner with PharmChem is one of the vendors out there, and again, she can talk to you about the details regarding the patch. I do not run a testing site. I will tell you that if I ran a testing site, I would only use drug patches. Now, every testing device method has its pros and its cons. The advantage to the UA is when you do the test right there, you get an immediate result, so you can take immediate action. This one, the drug patch, you have to send out to a laboratory. It takes a little while to get it back. So But in my opinion, and we'll see the stats here in a minute, the drug patch is much more difficult to defeat. We say it lasts for 7 to 10 days. It'll last for 7 to 14 days. A lot depends on what kind of job the person has. If they're a construction worker, they're outside in the summer, they do a lot of sweating, that patch might have to come off a little earlier. If they're an office worker, maybe they can keep it on a little bit longer. But generally 7 to 10 days for us is the rule. You'll see passing rate, 76%. A little different than 94%. I think the drug patch tests for more things, catches more things, and more difficult to defeat. Now, one of the issues you have, though, with even a UA and a drug patch is sometimes you have to go, the judge will ask them, when's the last time you used drugs? And hopefully they're honest with them, because if they say, I just used it last night, then we know that the first couple patches that are going to be on them are going to come back positive. And we'll give them benefit of the doubt for those. If they said, I haven't used for 2 weeks, comes back positive, then they're not going to get any benefit of the doubt. So there's a lot of things you have to consider in here. The future. I said we have 5 testing methods. Number 6 is on the way. We are getting ready to release an RFP for what we refer to as a mobile breath testing device. Some of other agencies, some vendors refer to it as remote breath, all different kinds of names for it. But basically it's about that size, like a portable PBT that you assign to the client. It has GPS, it has a camera. They get a text message telling them, well, first of all, you can schedule tests. So for us, we'll schedule tests 12 hours apart. We ran a pilot program using this particular device, and it worked very well. So you schedule the 2 tests, and then you schedule random tests. Our Department of Corrections in South Dakota uses this quite a bit, and they are very, very, very happy with it. Because they basically can go, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I suspect my parolee might be out partying, so I'm going to send him a text message and require him to take a breath test right now. So it's on demand. You can schedule random ones, or you can do on demand. They get a text message on their cell phone. In the pilot program, we gave them like 20 minutes to go take the test, because this thing can be a little large. We don't expect them to necessarily have it right on their person, but we want it within reach of them. So we gave them 20 minutes to go take a test. So that's the future. We anticipate we'll be going to that in 2018. Technology is constantly changing, even in this area. So these statistics I want to show you were done taking a group of individuals who were arrested for driving under the influence, taking a group that did not participate in the 24/7 program, and then comparing people who had participated in the 24/7 program to that group. So, people convicted the first time, DUI 1 to the next DUI offense. Instead of saying DUI 2, sometimes the way our legislation used to work was they could be charged with DUI a second time, DUI 1 a second time. It was really kind of convoluted. So we say next DUI offense, but generally that would be DUI 2. So the first group, where it says controls, that's a group that did not participate in 24/7. The next group's all individuals who participated in the 24/7 program. The second one is everybody who participated. The third one are participants with 30 consecutive days on the program. And then the last one are people with 90 days or more on the program. One of the things that we have noticed is the longer you're on a program, typically the more successful the results are. would say to anybody, but it's a lot easier to stay sober. It's a lot easier to stay on a diet for 30 days than it is for 90 days or longer. That's just human nature. So, the blue is a 1-year rate, and red's a 2-year rate, and then 3-year rate, and then 4-year rate. So in the control group, 5% of that group is charged for its DUI, another DUI offense within the first year. 8.2 were charged with it within the second year. Then look at the folks that were on the 24/7 program. Numbers are down significantly. This is the one where we went from DUI 2 to DUI 3, where the 90-day thing doesn't quite work out. Not sure why, but it's still quite a reduction compared. Now, understand, someone arrested for DUI 1 might be that person that's really not a hardcore drinker. They just made a bad decision one time. DUI 2, you're starting getting into people whose behavior when it comes to drinking might need some attention. DUI 3, you can see the number just keeps kind of, the control group just keeps kind of going up. Again, those are the people that are not on the 24/7 program. While the folks on the 24/7 program, although you might see a slight increase, still significantly lower. In DUI 4, and we will do this. Some judges will do this to the nth degree. They will keep putting people on the program who don't succeed very well over and over again. And sometimes I see these and I'm just thinking to myself, come on, judge, at some point, you got to say, this program is not perfect. This program is not for everybody. But you know, sometimes when I see that person who's put on it for the 6th or 7th time, all of a sudden, success, for whatever reason. So again, you see the numbers keep creeping higher for the control groups. The higher you get into the DUI numbers, they creep up again for the 24/7 folks, but not to that degree as the folks who were not on the 24/7. Our program fees. We say that the 24/7 program is offender funded. I have some sheriffs who say, I wouldn't go so far as say that I'm not spending any money on this program. I have to pay people to come in and I have to pay staff to do testing. However, I will say this, and what I typically say to those sheriffs are, how much does it cost you to incarcerate somebody for 1 day? And generally I get the figure of $80 to $100 a day. And I'm sure that varies around the country, but $80 to $100 a day. That's money that they are saving by running a 24/7 program. That clearly covers a lot of their costs. And some of my larger jurisdictions, such as the Sioux Falls and the Rapid Cities, they don't have their prisoners in their beds. Who do they have? They have federal prisoners that they're getting paid for. So, when you consider all that, it is offender funded. Generally, the first year I ran the program, I got a call from the Attorney General in November. He says, Art, you need to spend $100,000. I've been a police chief. I've never been told to spend $100,000. It's usually cut $100,000. And I'm kind of going, okay. And he says, I don't want to go into the legislature with a huge pot of 24/7 money. When the legislation was passed, one of the caveats that was put on it, and sheriffs encouraged us to do this, one of the caveats that was put on it was 24/7 funds that are received by the sheriff in the state can only be used for the 24/7 program to keep it running. It cannot be used to buy a snowplow or shovel. It has to be, and auditors watch this very closely. It has to be used for the 24/7 program. So the Attorney General was concerned that if he went to the legislature, and it was a tough budget year for the state, if he went to the legislature with a large balance in the 24/7 fund, that they would change the legislation. So Art spent $100,000. Quite frankly, it took me a while to spend $100,000. That wasn't my game. But basically, we ended up with technology. Ended up buying laptops for the sites used just for reporting their 24/7 information. I bought them PBTs. We bought more SCRAM bracelets. We bought all kinds of different things. But during that discussion of trying to spend that $100,000, one of the sheriffs said to me, "You know, we could use some money to help supplement hiring. Some of our sites hire part-time retired folks or students, whatever, to come in and do the testing. They come in for 2 hours in the morning, they come in for 2 hours in the evening, and they do the testing." So I could use some money to help pay for those folks. Okay. Well, long story short was last year, the Attorney General says, "Art, I need to spend $500,000. And what we started a few years ago was basically our grant program where the sheriffs or any testing agency could apply for that money to help pay for their staffing. And that's how I distribute the money now. So our program fees for a PBT test, they pay $1 per test. So that's $2 a day. That money stays with the sheriff or the testing agency. And I keep saying testing agency. I do have 2 counties where the sheriff delegated the testing to the police department in that county, the largest police department. So that money stays with the testing agency. That costs the testing agency, needless to say, we go through quite a few PBT tubes in this program. So we get a pretty good rate on our PBT tubes. Costs us about 10 cents a tube. And no, we don't reuse the tubes. I had one agency that did. Anyhow, that's another story. They don't do it anymore. For the first 30 days, we have what I would refer to as an administrative fee, where the participant pays an extra $1 a day. That money comes to the Attorney General's fund, 24/7 fund. So basically, you have the local 24/7 fund, and the Attorney General has a 24/7 fund. For UAs, they pay $10 for a UA. That money stays with the sheriff. If it has to go to the lab for analysis, then the sheriff is expected to pay that fee. Typically, the majority of them do not go to the lab. The majority of them pass. It's not an issue. And if they do the field test, it comes back positive, and the client or participant admits to it, that's all we need. It doesn't go to the lab. A drug patch is $40 per patch. We're about to raise that fee to $45. A lot of other states that use the drug patch charge anywhere from $50 to $65. One of the things we try to do is keep it affordable. Keep it affordable for the participant. Again, that $40 remains with the agency, but every drug patch has to be analyzed, so they have to pay the cost of the analysis. SCRAM fees, a little more complicated. $40 activation fee, $40 deactivation fee. That money stays with the local agency. So as you see, we're trying to provide funding to that agency to help offset their costs, in addition to the grants that we send them, in addition to the money they save but not having to incarcerate. And then we charge $6 a day monitoring fee. And the breakdown for that is we have to pay alcohol monitoring systems, AMS, a fee for every day. Again, $1 of that $6 goes back to the testing agency, and the remainder stays with the Attorney General's fund. Attorney General's fund, in addition to the grants, pays for all the equipment. We have to buy more SCRAM bracelets. We buy them. The agency isn't responsible for it. We're currently developing a new software program for the program. for the 24/7 program. EAG is paying for that. They'll be given to the testing agencies at no cost to them. So we try to absorb as many of the what we would consider statewide fees as possible. Ignition interlock, there's our fees, $80 for installation, $40 for removal. They lease the device from our vendor. We created some fees for the sheriff's office or the testing agency. There's an initial inspection sign-up fee because that takes a little bit of time for the sheriff's office to get them set up. And then again, with Ignition Interlock, you lose that face-to-face. So for this one, we created a 30-day inspection. I say created, it's actually pretty good. It gives us a chance to look at the Ignition Interlock unit, make sure that it's keeping it clean, all those kind of things. Every 60 days, we have to replace it with a new unit, so we do it at that time. And again, it gives the testing site the opportunity to have some one-on-one contact with the participant. This is a survey that was done of folks who have been on the program to kind of get their feel of it. You know, the numbers aren't, you're not seeing any 90% in here, you're not seeing anything much higher than, I think, 43% agree. But when you look at some of the areas, once in the program I was treated with respect, which is the highest number that we have. Our testers are very good at this, and they do. You know, a lot of these participants, their contact with law enforcement has not been a positive issue. Even if law enforcement was tried to be positive and all those kind of things, typically it results in incarceration or a ticket, something like this. This gives the folks a chance to interact one-on-one with law enforcement in a different capacity. And it gives law enforcement a chance to work with these clients in a different capacity. And as I said, most of our testers are very, very encouraging. So treated with respect, 43.6%. That's pretty good. That's just you know, the top number. I like the program. I wouldn't like the program. I didn't like having Ignition Interlock in my car. You know? Seems like kind of a little bit of an odd question, but still, you know, we got 20% who said they liked it. I mean, we had an average out of 5. We had an average score of 2.57, which is more than half. So the program was good for me. You know, these are pretty subjective questions, obviously. But you know, if they feel good about it, that's going to have positive consequences. Because of this program, I have a better family relationship. One thing I wish they would have done on this survey was ask the family, not necessarily the participants. Because I think they'd get a different answer, quite frankly. Because of this program, I'm a better person. What the definition of a better person, I'm not sure, but if they think they are, that's great. That's great. One of the questions, I don't know if it's might be in the next survey. Quick glance of it, I don't see it. But one of the things we hear from our participants, our clients, is about the financial aspect. Now, they moan and groan initially when they have to pay to take the testing. But what they find out is if they stay sober, they are saving money, a significant amount of money. One couple related to us, and they were both in the program at the same time. They had never owned a new vehicle in their entire life, and these folks were probably in their 50s. Neither one of them had ever owned a new vehicle in their entire life. As a result of being on the program for a couple of years, at the end of that couple of years, they had enough money to go out and buy a brand new Ford 450 pickup truck. And they were ecstatic about it. The good judges. One of the things when I first took became the coordinator, we had judges waiving fees, and it was killing us. They just said, well, you know, they can't afford it. Really, Judge? How much do you think they were spending on alcohol? Not just alcohol, but everything associated with it. How many people just drink a beer? Don't they typically have a munchie with it? Don't they buy alcohol for their friends, other people? Don't they miss work? Don't they lose jobs? These are all financial aspects for the participant when it comes to this program. Typically, once I've explained that to a judge, they kind of go, okay, yeah, I get it now. But because judges were waiving the fees, we had to go back to the legislature and create new legislation that stated that only the sheriff or the attorney general could waive the fee. Needless to say, that did not endear us to the judges at all. But it stopped the bleeding. And occasionally, I'll have a sheriff who will waive the fee. I have sheriffs, especially in some of my rural counties, who will tell me, I don't charge them for a PBT test. It's $1. I only have 3 people on it. It's not like it's going to create a heavy revenue account for me. However, if I can keep these clients sober, it means that I'm not dealing with them as much as I used to deal with them. I'm not sending a deputy out to their house to deal with whatever the issue is because they've been drinking. And I'm not paying, some of my smaller sheriff's agencies don't have jails, so they contract with a neighboring jail. I'm not paying to incarcerate now. So, $2 a day, that's a steal. Okay, I mean, it's their money, it's their business. However, the Attorney General does not waive any of the fees. We do not waive the participation fee, that administrative fee that we talked about. We do not waive SCRAM fees, which is typically the AG has control over the SCRAM funding. We don't waive it. We just feel it's a slippery slope. And once you start down that slope, then you start to pick and choose and you're going to have problems. And we still feel that they're saving enough money that they can afford those minor fees. So here's some more of the interesting of the survey was taken before the person started the program and then after they completed the program. Not a huge increase in change, but it is an increase. And some of those categories are pretty important in somebody's life. Again, we're talking about changing individuals' behavior, changing their actions, getting them to recognize what they can, how much alcohol they can consume, and how much they can't consume. But abstinences, for some people, it's got to be abstinence. Some people, that's it. But for most people, if you control it, you're okay. For us, this is why the program works. We have the buy-in of the courts, we have the buy-in of law enforcement, we have the buy-in of prosecutors and defense attorneys. We get a lot of defense attorneys who want to put their clients on this program. Keep them out of jail, again. So for us, it's worked very well. The program, the 24/7 program, is in other states. Every state adopts it a little different. Every state's the circumstances in every state. Vermont is not South Dakota, obviously. North Dakota was the first state to start a 24/7 program after us. Theirs probably mirrors us the closest, but even they are different. Montana has a program. They're slightly different. So every state or every agency that does it kind of tweaks it to fit their needs. We're not saying, I'm not standing here and saying this is a magic program and this will solve all your problems. It has its good points. It has its not so good points. For South Dakota, it's been very beneficial. For other states, it has worked well. Benefits of the program. I say mom, dad, it could be spouse, girlfriend, significant other, can be plugged in there, and kids are safer. They're safer because they don't have, the alcohol creates abuse. If the alcohol creates abuse in their family, we reduce that. If it means that mom, dad, significant other are driving while impaired, and they have the children in the car, obviously the children are safe. So the public's safer. Defendants will spend less time in jail. I'm not saying they won't spend any time in jail. They'll spend less time in jail. Treatment prospects improve. And I never really thought about this until I was talking with Alcohol Anonymous counselor who told me she loves the program. She says, I absolutely love the 24/7 program. I'm kind of going, how come? She says, because people are coming to treatment sober. I hadn't thought about that. I've never been to an AA meeting, so I didn't know. When they're sober, I can work with them. They're not coming to the program intoxicated. Defendant remains employed. We have employees who pay the client's fees. It's worth it to them. They have a good employee when they're sober. So they'll pay $2 a day to keep them sober. Or $6 a day for SCRAM, whatever the test is. A lot of employees pay for this program. The defendant, client, participant maintains their responsibility to their family and to their community. When an individual is placed incarcerated, especially for an extended period of time, what generally happens with the family. There's no income any longer, so they go on social services, and who pays for that? We all pay. Again, I touched on the offender funded. There is no taxpayer cost. We do not use any general funds for the program. Now, we didn't start out that way. We had to start out with a grant. And I wasn't in the position at the time, but I believe what I'm told is we got a grant from Highway Safety to get it started. We got some money from the legislature, but the legislature was very clear to us, this is all you're getting. Don't ever come back and ask for more. So we took that little bit of money to start the pilot programs, and then, as I said, more and more developed from that. There is now specifically highway safety funding available to start a 24/7 program, a grant. The FAST Act includes the 24/7 program in there. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking about doing something like this, to look that up and see what's available to you to help you get started. I won't say there won't be some local costs to help get you started. Could be, couldn't be. You don't have to go statewide right off the bat. And I would encourage you to, if you're considering something like this, to consider some pilot programs. Start small. I jokingly say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So start small, and go from there. Questions? I'm sure I have plenty. Yes?
You mentioned towards the beginning that sobriety versus abstinence is what you're targeting. What's the minimum BAC to constitute a failure?
Anything.
Anything?
Anything.
So you are looking for...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's...
Could you repeat the question?
The question was, I talked initially about sobriety versus abstinence. And the question was, when we give somebody a PBT test, what's the level that we say is passing? If anything shows on that PBT screen, that's a failure. So at the time they take their test, they have got to be totally clean. Yes?
So could a defendant refuse this program?
Yes.
If they're an alcoholic and they know that they can't do it, they can
Yeah, the question is, can a defendant refuse a program? And the answer is yes. They're not required. The judges usually encourage them, obviously, and typically the choice is go to jail or go on a 24/7 program. We have folks who go to jail. Say, I do my time, get it over with, I got it.
We have folks with microphones in the audience, so when you ask a question, someone on either side of the room can approach you, and then everyone can hear your question. Thanks.
So if that shut everybody off, my question is, can people share SCRAM bracelets? Like, could you make somebody else wear it, or make somebody else blow into the car?
I should have pointed out, thanks for asking that question, I should have pointed out that for the ignition interlock, it has camera, so we look to see, and we have specific requirements. The participant signs what we call a participation agreement, and it lays out all the rules. And one of the rules for ignition interlock is they know where the camera's at in the car, they need to look at it. You stand outside your car with your back to the, it's got a cord on it, you go back to it, you blow, that's a failure. I don't care if you pass, if you're clean, that's a failure. We want to see you take that test. And for the mobile breath, I didn't mention, it has a camera in it also. So if you're at a bar and you get a text that you have to take a remote breath test, you can't hand it to your designated driver, so it has a camera. A SCRAM bracelet, and again, the representatives from AMS are out in the vendor area. It detects a number of things, and one of it is temperature. As soon as you take it off, it's going to get an alert that the temperature has changed. And we get people that, trust me, they put bologna between the leg and the SCRAM bracelet, which is disgusting. Aluminum foil. I mean, you can go on the internet and find all kinds of tales about how to defeat the SCRAM bracelet. It really cannot be defeated. We found one person who defeated it. He was a very intelligent engineer who, I mean, he went to more trouble defeating it than it was worth, in my opinion, but he did. So again, nothing's perfect. Nothing's perfect. Does that answer all your questions? I know we have one over here.
How long are they in the program for, and at what time in the program do they take that questionnaire?
The questionnaire was taken at the end of the program. They could be on the program for as little as a week. I mean, they could be on it. We have people on it who have been on it for years,
Well,
5, 6 years.
What decides that?
Judge, any other?
If someone decides to go on the 24/7 program, do you provide resources for sobriety, like the AA or other resources like that to help them stay sober?
Good question. Our 24/7 program is a monitoring program. It's not a treatment program, per se. Indirectly it is, but per se it's not. A judge will usually put them on some sort of another program, whether it's AA or some other counseling, to go hand in hand with 24/7. 24/7 is not a treatment program, it's a monitoring program. It's just that relationship, especially on the question of the PBT, creates somewhat of a treatment.
Thanks for your presentation, Art.
Yes.
Lots of your excellent examples were about sort of older people and adults, and I'm wondering about young people, specifically teenagers and people in their 20s and maybe a college population, if there's an experience in South Dakota with that population.
Well, as I said, the community I come from, the police chief was home of the University of South Dakota, so I'm very familiar with the university environment. We have juveniles in the program. We don't have a lot of juveniles in the program because that creates a whole different monster. If we have a juvenile in the program, our testing agencies will test them separately from when we're testing adults, just to keep that separation going. But we do have juveniles in the program. Not as many. I think North Dakota seems to have more juveniles in the program than we do, and I don't know if that's just a judge thing or whatever. The age range of folks in our program, really cover the entire gamut. They go from juveniles to folks in their 80s, if not older. It goes in the entire game. Probably typically you think about the 20-something male is probably the core. We think of them as being the core. Unfortunately, right now, our current software doesn't allow us to determine who that core is in our program. Our new software will. I'm looking forward to seeing that. But when I go to the sites, it's about 50-50 when it comes to male and female coming through their testing. And the age is pretty much all across the board.
What's the status of their driver's license during this period?
They are giving what we refer to in South Dakota as a work permit or a restricted license. Every state has a different word for it. And basically, our work permit allows them to drive back and forth to work, back and forth to school, medical, and drive back and forth to PVT testing. We have some folks who are on the program just to maintain their work permit. So if they come in and we call blow hot, they are not incarcerated, we immediately pull their work permit. We have Division of Motor Vehicles, which driver's licensing. They use this a lot in the area of where somebody in South Dakota is arrested in Minnesota for drunk driving. We do their compact agreement. South Dakota is notified. So driver's licensing will place them on the program with a work permit. Yeah, I should point out too, who's on the program? Who can put people on the program? The courts obviously can put folks on the program. Probation and parole can put people on the program. Driver's licensing can put people on the program. Department of Social Services can put people on the program, typically for the child custody issue. So those are the entities that can place people on the program. You cannot be put on a program, you cannot volunteer to come on the program. You have to be placed on it by one of those entities. And I get phone calls and psychic questions all the time about people who are on the program, they're successfully completed it, and beg us to leave them on the program. And we can't do it. This sort of legislation doesn't allow it. They say, we'll pay whatever it takes. We'll pay you twice. We'll do whatever. And they say, this program's made me a different person. And we try to explain to them, no, you made yourself a different person. Program has helped. You can do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
You said you prefer the twice a day in-person testing because of the accountability and whatnot, but it looked like the SCRAM failure rate was a lot lower, like it was like 50% versus 25%, so I didn't know if I was missing something, there was some benefit that you didn't mention to the twice a day.
Well, obviously, as I mentioned, the twice a day, you can drink afterwards. SCRAM, you don't have a cost. So that's why their failure rate is going to be 70-some% overall, whereas 99% on PVT. Twice a day, foundation. The way we started, we kind of adopted all these other things because circumstances create, things came up we didn't think about. I will always say that twice a day will always be the foundation, but the problem is if you limit it to twice a day, then look at all the people you shut out of the program. And I think that's an important thing. Yeah, maybe remote testing isn't quite as beneficial as twice a day testing, but you saw the numbers. On any given day, I've got 600 people with a SCRAM bracelet. On any given day, I've got about 100 people on admission Interlock. These are people who wouldn't be on the program if it wasn't for those devices. And I don't think you can push those people aside. I think you have to use whatever technology is out there. Yes.
Do your sheriff's departments have a local lockup facility associated with the department, or is it transport involved for an individual who wants time?
It's both, actually. The Sioux Falls Police Department, Sheriff's Office. Sioux Falls is the largest city in South Dakota. They have that kind of a unique situation. They created their 24/7 testing office. If you blow hot, they have a room you go into, you sit, and I should have pointed this out. you sit for 15 minutes, and you take another test. We tell them, don't be chewing gum before your test, don't be using mouthwash, all those kind of things. But they do. They come in, the blows and smell of peppermint from the mouthwash. And you go, well, we either they clearly just used mouthwash. Was it because they've been drinking and they want to hide the odor, or did they just hygiene? So they put them in that room. It's a secure room. It has a window with an opening in it. And 15 minutes later, they walk over to the window and give them a second test. They pass that second test, they get to walk out the door to came in. If they fail that second test, door number 2 goes directly to booking. So you have some of those. And then, as I said, some of the testing agencies don't have the jail. They contract with somebody else. So if that person blows hot, they have to transport them. That's obviously not the best thing, but that's the way it works.
I heard you say earlier that there's preponderance of drug violations that are coming up. Could you speak to that in terms of the testing and relationship of the DRE program in South Dakota to that issue?
Yeah, the DRE program, we do have a DRE program. In fact, when I was the police chief in Vermont, we had one of the first DRE officers. But I don't know that there's necessarily a relationship between the 24/7 program and the DRE program, so to speak. When I say we've seen an increase, I think we've seen the same increase that everybody has seen across the country. It's just there. It's kind of taken us by surprise to some degree, but it's there. The good news is we do have a program that will help address it. I think they were very wise, and I had nothing to do with this, when they started the program, to immediately jump on and recognize, we could use this for drug testing too. And we get people put on the program just for drug testing. That's all they do. I get some judges who put them on a twice-a-day PPT on a drug charge. And I go, why are you doing that? That's rare. But we are seeing a lot more people on the program for drugs than we are.
Could you speak to the testing that you do?
Well, the testing is the urine analysis and the drug patch. That's the testing. We don't get into a lot of interviews or any of that kind of stuff. It's pretty plain. I have a question here. I'll repeat it.
How many states have some version of a 24/7?
How many states have some version of a 24/7? I don't know the exact number because I talk to a lot of states who say they're going to do it, but I never hear back from them and don't know for sure. I could tell you it's probably safe to say that some states, there's a 24/7 program in some capacity in at least 15 to 20 states. A lot of other states, I should point out too, one of the things, I get phone calls all the time from other states. They send me your statistics, tell me about the program, all this kind of stuff. Even if I give them a presentation like this, quite frankly, it doesn't really touch the program. You want to see the program, how it works, and really get a feel for it, you come to South Dakota and you watch. Because what happens is, the folks who are asking questions about, whether they're from Nebraska or wherever, I try to explain everything to them just as I've done with you. You can't do it. You just physically can't do it. They come to the site, they watch the testing, we allow them to talk with the participants if the participants are willing to talk with them, and they tell me, wow, I thought I understood the program. Boy, you got to see it to believe it. In Sioux Falls, where I said they test depending on their cycle, they'll test from anywhere from 400, they will administer anywhere from 400 to 500 PPT tests during one testing cycle, during one morning test. They have 2 people doing it, maybe 3. It's quick. When the testing starts in the evening, they start at 5:30 in the evening for their testing. There's a line at the door. They don't unlock the door till 5:30. There's a line at that door. And within 15 minutes, that line is strong. It's quick. It's a lot quicker than you anticipate. As long as you pass. They are not quite quick.
I'm curious, Art, you indicated that when you sold it to the sheriffs in different counties, you know, for each space in lockup, have they done any historical to look at how much you free up beds and that?
No, they haven't. I wish they would, but the simple answer is no, we don't. I just know what I hear from the sheriffs. Now, I do know that they can look at their budget, see what their cost was for. So from that perspective, we have had verification from their budget that it has saved them funding for incarceration. Yes.
So we have the advantage in Vermont of being small and rural as you do in South Dakota, but I'm wondering from your greater DC experience, is this scalable up to urban areas like DC and New York and Boston, or is it really something that we're going to have success with in our rural communities?
Excellent question, because a lot of the, I don't want to use the word pushback, but what I hear from some of the more populated states is that, well, this will work in a rural community, but it's not going to work in our community. In fact, I was contacted by somebody from Fairfax County about the 24/7 program. They were looking at starting a 24/7 program, and I said, Fairfax County is perfect for it. Number one, you got public transportation. That's a big issue. You know, our most, in my opinion, our most utilized 24/7 programs are in our two largest cities, Rapid City and Sioux Falls. They both have public transportation. That makes a big difference. And I was telling the folks in Fairfax County, I said, this is perfect. Well, they go, well, Fairfax County is 400 square miles. I said, I know. I go over every mile of those. But you have 9 district police stations. And they all at least have a holding cell. So you get 9 places across your county that you can be doing testing, not just one like we typically utilize. So, long story short, never got off the ground. I don't know why. They didn't tell me why. I didn't ask. But to answer your question, I think it would work better in an urban area than it really does in a rural area, just because of the distances that we have. Okay, I'm going. Yes.
Thank you. I was just curious if I'm not sure if South Dakota has a medicinal marijuana law and how the testing, level of sophistication around the testing, and how that plays out in your program. And also a question about if you're integrating your program with the impaired driver programs in your state. Program.
Answer your first question is no, we do not have any type of legalized marijuana in South Dakota yet. We fought it. When I say we, the medical society in South Dakota and the law enforcement society has fought it every time it comes up. The last time it came up, I was the president of the South Dakota Chiefs Association. I kind of spearheaded the law enforcement side of it, and it failed miserably that time. I think it's just a matter of time. I suspect if you put it on a ballot today, there's a good chance it will pass. Just because that's kind of the way the entire country's going. Plus, we have Colorado to thank for, we get a lot of traffic from Colorado. So anyhow, that's not an issue. And I'm not sure when it does become an issue, and it will, you're absolutely right. To me, that's the bad news. For me, the good news is I'll be retired. I've picked a date in April. I don't think it's going to pass before April. I think I'm okay, but it'll be an issue and difficulty to deal with. Very much like the treatment programs that we have, the judges put people in that are also on 24/7. If they're in some kind of a driver's improvement, whatever term you want to use for it, if they're in that, could be put in that also. So they all kind of work together. And again, when I talk to people who run all programs like that, they also voice the fact that they seem to be more successful when people come to their meetings and teaching sober. I'm going to be getting a wrap-up. Are there any last questions? One last question. If not, I will be around the rest of the day. Please feel free to come see me. And I have business cards I'll be glad to share with you. Be glad to talk with you. Glad to help you in any way that we can. We don't own this program. We share it. So anything I can do to assist you, please let me know. Thank you.